First Undisputed is coming up in about 12 minutes. Good morning, Joy. What will you and the guys be talking about today?
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, guys. Coming up on Undisputed, why is Knicks guy LeBron so scared of reseeding the playoffs? And has Kawhi Leonard played his last game in San Antonio? Plus, Eddie House and Mark Schlereth are in studio with us. Undisputed is coming up next. Sarah, back to you guys.
Unbelievable, Joy Taylor.
Did she give you the side?
Oh, dude, Queen Patty.
You guys are starting trouble. Thank you, Joy.
All right, but let's watch this. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Time for us to go viral. Eagles fans still flying high off their Super Bowl win, and a small handful have a really cool souvenir. Check this out. The Vikings sent confetti from the Metrodome to a few dozen fans who donated to Minnesota Vikings Foundation.
So I might have I have a source that says CC might have a little inside information of what exactly transpired here and whose idea it was.
My daughter works for the Vikings, and she was at the game working, and she saw all the confetti falling, and she's been around football and sports her whole life, and she knew that I was drafted by Philadelphia. She thought, what a memento. These Eagles fans are running around crazy. Gather up some of the confetti. So she got a trash bag, gathered up the confetti, went to her boss.
Your daughter
personally, not an assignment. Yeah, she went and gathered it herself and was able to package it, tell her bosses, and they came up with something with a foundation. The Vikings Foundation made these donations to these people who made donations to the foundation. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah, Monterey Carter, she's really into it. Like, she's a whole nother level.
That's a heads-up play.
She's great. She's big time. It's a really, really cool thing.
Yeah.
Really smart girl. I got some.
You might have to bring her over to Fox Sports.
Yeah.
She's great.
Back to hoops, Lonzo Ball has been out of the lineup since January 13th with a sprained MCL. Before the injury, he was showing promising signs, averaging 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists over his last 15 games. He's expected to make his return Friday against the Mavs. Nick, how important is the rest of the season for Lonzo's future with the Lakers?
Well, the reason the future is a part of this is because the Lakers this offseason are going to pursue LeBron James, and they're going to pursue another marquee free agent, be it Paul George, or depending on how comfortable they are with Boogie Cousins' Achilles, Boogie Cousins, probably LeBron and Paul George. And Lonzo comes with some baggage now. We know that. Now, early in the year, that baggage was attached to a player who was the least efficient offensive player in the league. Prior to his injury, his last dozen games, he had upped that offensive efficiency. I think this last quarter of the season is key to him because the Lakers are going to make some other moves this offseason if they do get LeBron and Paul George. That's not going to be the team that they trot out there. They're going to need some more shooters. They're going to need some other things. And if Lonzo regresses back to where he was, Lonzo is, to me, one of their still best assets out there. Aside from Brandon Ingram, probably the best asset they have on the team. So because of the baggage that comes along with his pops, if he's not playing well at the end of the year, and LeBron or Paul George aren't super keen on the idea of playing with him, that could be a very brief run of his tenure with the Lakers. So that's why I think his future is a part of this discussion.
I believe it's really important for Lonzo right now just to focus on himself and focus on his overall development on the court. We saw the promising signs in the last 14, 15 games he was in. Those are the best numbers that we saw. We saw the improved three-point shooting. We saw a little improved on the defensive end. He does some other things really spectacular as far as overall leadership, how he runs the team. He's very in the moment. He's not emotional. He's not an emotional roller coaster, which you see with a lot of players. His rebounding the basketball, let's continue to build on those things. Like, I'm not concerned about some of the negatives right now, but just continuing building yourself as a basketball player, making yourself a prime asset to this organization, that whatever Magic Johnson said, I'm working towards making that a reality. I'm not worried about LeBron. I'm not worried about my dad. How do I make my teammates better? I believe those are the things right now because they're locked into a 4-year deal. I believe right now just continuing getting better on the basketball court. The basketball part, that's his safe haven. And I believe that if he continues to develop, it makes it look better for the Lakers as far as players in the future. He can't worry about that. That's Magic's job to do. That's Rob Pelinka's job to do. Right now, he needs to be worried about his overall basketball development, not worry about some of those other things that will take care of themselves.
Go ahead.
What does he specifically need to develop? The first thing people always say is the shot. He's got to improve his shot. But what do you see out of his game?
Well, you mentioned earlier, and it's a good point, that he'd been struggling enormously finishing at the rim. He was the worst three-point shooter in the league the first month of the year, but he was one of the worst shooters within 3 feet, which isn't shooting. That's just finishing. And I think part of that was a lack of confidence in free throw shooting. It's a lot easier to finish layups if you don't care if you get hit. I'm going to go to the rim. If I get hit, I'll go to the free throw line. If I don't get hit, I got the layup. When you're afraid to go to the free throw line, you're going to contort your body differently. You're going to put the ball up differently. That's what I was seeing from Lonzo, because he's shooting 48% from free throw line. Didn't want to get fouled, which is why he was a worse finisher early in the year than he had been at UCLA, because I think he's been a better defender than I expected. He's been as good of a passer as I expected and a better rebounder than I expected. It's just the scoring part of the game that he was really struggling with.
Yeah, I think on the defensive end, we were able to see, and the thing that you pointed out in our conversations was the lack of overall athleticism. And then we see at the rim. At the rim, he's only finishing at the rim. People be shocked. 45% when he's at the rim. At 6'5", that's really, really hard to do. So he's not, we saw the one clip where he's getting the alley-oop, but he's not a guy that's going to play above the rim. So now we know those things. Like, he's not going to be explosive like that. How does he adjust to the NBA that he can become more efficient at closing out at the rim? Because one thing we talk about Golden State, they spread the court. But they have more layups than anyone else, and the reason that they make those layups. So that's a huge part of his development, being able to finish in the paint.
All right, we're finishing with the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, who caused a lot of buzz this past week. He said he's open to changing the NBA playoff format to seed the top 16 teams regardless of conference. While a lot of people have been excited about the possible changes, LeBron James seems a bit hesitant. Take a listen.
I think our league has been built the right way as far as when it comes to the postseason. There's been dominant conferences throughout time. It's cool to mess around with an all-star game. You know, we proved that you could do that, but let's not get too crazy about the playoffs.
CeCe, what's your reaction to LeBron's comments?
Well, I think it's an overreaction. When you look at the conferences, people can go back over the last 10 years, the last 20 years as far as the titles. But the Western Conference, it is top-heavy more than the East. But when you go down to the bottom, you can't say that the bottom of the West is better than the East. You got New Orleans, you got the Clippers at the 9 spot, Utah at the 10.
When you say the bottom, you don't even mean the very bottom. You mean the bottom of the playoff picture.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not even talking about Phoenix and Dallas.
No, I believe those are matched up with Orlando, Brooklyn.
Right, of course.
With, those teams, they match off. But where I see the West, the top two teams, that being Houston and Golden State, I believe both of those teams can win an NBA title. I believe it's going to be hard to find anyone, a mystery team in the Eastern Conference besides Cleveland, that we can say can go through that gauntlet of either beating LeBron and then beating the team out west. So the top is heavier. The middle parts are around the same, but the bottom is where I think that the Western, they're about the same as the East. Like, they're not that much better. You talk about the numbers through the years from a championship standpoint that even make you think, the East is not that far from the West. It's just that the best players, a majority of them, are playing in the West in the recent years that tilts in their favor.
And you've been against the idea of this change since it got brought up, because of the TV schedule, because of the travel. For those reasons, you don't like it. You like it the way it is.
Yes, I do. I like East versus West to finish it out, because people don't realize that almost 60% of the TV sets of the human population is in the Eastern time zone. So when you're trying to do a finals that's going to start at 9 o'clock, you have to realize and take that. Who are the partners of the NBA? TNT, ESPN. I can guarantee you they care. So this is a great argument sometimes to have on Twitter, but when it's played out from a practical standpoint, it becomes more problematic.
But it also, historically, just since LeBron's been in the league, let's just take these 14 years, he mentioned it, the West has not been overwhelmingly dominant. There have been 14 championships given out. 8 have been won by the West. 6 have been won by the East. Oh, well, the West have had these more dominant teams. Well, really? Because, like, a dominant team right before LeBron got there was the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. Who ended them? The Detroit Pistons, who won that title, then took the next dominant team, the Spurs, to 7, and by the way, then LeBron ended them. The Celtics, who beat Kobe's next iteration. The Celtics beat that Lakers team, then took that Lakers team to 7. Who ended them? Oh, LeBron and the Heat, a team that we thought could have been the next great team. The Bulls with Derrick Rose, 3 injuries, 60 wins, an MVP. Very similar, by the way, to the young Thunder team that made the NBA Finals. What happened to them? They ran into LeBron. So, like, the reason it feels this way is because it feels like there's only one team that matters in the East. It's the team with LeBron. Well, yeah. That's the case. When you have the best player ever playing in his prime in a conference, he's going to dominate that conference. I do understand the league's concern that if LeBron goes out west, what does it mean? And this could be a contingency. But as our friend Joy Taylor said, the idea that LeBron's scared of this, he knows he's going to have to beat a team from the West to win a title anyway. He's in this thing to win titles. So he's going to have to go through the West no matter what.
And the people who make an argument for the West, if they were to bring up, well, when LeBron went against San Antonio in Cleveland the first time, it wasn't close. When LeBron went against San Antonio in Miami, that series wasn't as close. And then the Golden State, this last series, like, even though the numbers are 8 and 6, there's a few of those series that they were not that close. So if they were arguing that would be one of their points.
But San Antonio wasn't close the second time, but the Heat had won the first time. And Golden State wasn't close this year, but the Cavs had won the year before. I mean, it's closer than people give it credit for, I would say.
Well, we're close to the end. That's it. For us on First Things First, back tomorrow morning at 6:30 Eastern. Now stay tuned right here. Undisputed starts now.
Hold those germs.